us once before in Author's Corner, such a great sense of humor, and really his writing is, I would call it, delightful. And when I say delightful, it's when you sit down, you open up the book, and you cannot put it down, because you all know I like the physical book. I know a lot of people do the Kindle thing. Anyway, Keith Corman is with us. He's written a children's book that has a great message in it called Katie and Kenny Tore the Railroad. Hey, thanks so much, Keith, for joining us once again.
Yes, thank you, Kate. It's my pleasure to be with you again, and it's always fun.
So you and I had a great off-air conversation about trains, and we both have that in common, that we love trains, etc. Mm-hmm. But we also know with kids, and I've seen this in my career as a television reporter, that railroad safety, it's scary what happens to kids when it comes to trains. Why do you think that is?
Well, one, they get enthused and excited. I've been there when I was a kid. The only difference is I don't run at the train. But anyway, the excitement's still there. And they're just intrigued with it. And they're big, they're awesome, they're just something to really get into. And they don't really realize the danger, and of course, they're in an age of innocence, but still, I don't think that ever leaves people as they get older. They think of it as more or less as kind of like toy trains or a video or something like that, but it's a very dangerous occupation. All the person has to do is ask the employees that work with the railroad, and they can tell you.
Yeah, and that's part of what inspired you to write this book, right?
Right.
That it was about education. Yeah.
Right. And that and then the people overall, the general public anymore, doesn't understand the concept of the important role railroading plays in our day-to-day lives. And I think we need to know that. Sometimes I think we're, nothing against rails to trails, but I've walked them, they're great. But we don't want to get so excited with, well, the train only runs over it once a week or every other day or something like that. Well, that's not enough. Let's take it up and put it into a trail. And you lose the opportunity for economic development by doing that too much. And, it's some of these trails run for no particular reason. They're just a trail. So we want to make sure that we can keep those for development and providing jobs for people as they're coming up,
Yeah, and speaking of providing jobs, when we're speaking with Keith Corman, the name of the book is Katie and Kenny Tore the Railroad. Talk about that a little bit. I think people don't understand the importance still of the rails here in this country because they think of shipping or something else. They don't realize how much freight is actually moved through the rails, correct? Right.
Probably 80% of everything or more of what we receive in our homes somewhere had to be shipped by rail. And more so yet today with the new restrictions on truck drivers and trucking, and the lack of interest in driving long distances has created a hardship on the trucking industry. Many of them are really not going out of business even because of it, because the focus has been in the last 20, 30, 40 years to replace rail with truck. And each one of them has their own place to be able to contribute to the growth of our country. And we can't do it without one or without the other, or barging or anything like that. Without we remove one factor of the equation, the whole equation doesn't mix right.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That's so true. Tell us about the characters of the book, Katie and Kenny. Why Katie and Kenny?
Well, we particularly, my family and I, like cats. And cats by nature, as you know, are inquisitive, and they really like to study things out, and they don't like change. But we thought that, or I thought that it would be best to go ahead. Cats are cuddly and cute. Most people do love cats and the little kitties, and the being curious, then they would be able to fit right into it, and they get excited over things. So cats do, so especially things that move. So it all kind of gels together, and I think little kids can identify with the kittens a lot better, as well as the parents understanding with their dad and the the neighbor that's a railroader that gives them a tour of the railroad yard. All characters are cats in this book.
Yeah, I love that they're all cats. The when you looked at putting this together, and we talked about the education, what inspired you to write it, making it positive, that kind of thing, and what people don't realize about railroads and trains just in general, the railroad. You and I also had in common, I mentioned this, just brushed over it in the beginning, that we both had trouble sleeping because we grew up near trains, right? And it's that rhythm. And
Right.
tell us a story about that.
Right. Well, when I was a little boy, I lived in a town called Lawrenceburg, Indiana, right across the straight line from Cincinnati, Ohio. And the New York Central, which is now, it's actually part of either CSX or Norfolk Southern. But at the time, it was New York Central, ran across literally one corner of our backyard. And that was the spur line off the main. And then the B&O, Baltimore and Ohio's line between Cincinnati and St. Louis was 1 block away. And since we lived on the corner, I could see the trains go through there, and I could watch the trains go by behind the house when I was a kid. Story was, before I could walk in my stroller, I could beat the train from the back window to the front window of the house with the steam locomotive would go by. So I was a daredevil, rail enthusiast.
I love that. I was a daredevil. You know what I was thinking this the other day after we talked, and for people listening, I know there's people that can completely relate to the whole idea of the sounds of the train and all of that. I wonder how many tracks are still out there across the United States. I mean, that was a big deal to, first of all, to design and do the whole rail process to make it go from the east to the west, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was like the first step on the moon, actually, when the Golden Spike was driven at Promontory Point. And that was 150 years ago.
Wow.
So when you think about it, they just celebrated it last year, the sesquicentennial. So that was quite a feat. And they didn't have all the heavy-moving equipment that they do today. They had mules, horses, dump carts, and men, mostly men. And it was hard, strenuous work, but they did it and made it happen. And unfortunately, there were some things that paid the price for it, like the American Indian, but or Native American, as we call them today. But sometimes, unfortunately, those are the things that happen. But railroading is really exciting. It isn't all just the robber barons of the 1880s and 90s, but it's when you think about it and you're sitting at a grade crossing and you're ranting and raving and swearing at the train for taking up your time, realize no commerce moves like that in the rest of the world by rail as it does here in the United States. And we're really seeing jobs and growth going by us. So the more we see, that's an indicator.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you want people to take away from reading this book? I mean, we know it's a kid's book, but I think adults can appreciate it too, and especially just even reading it to children in their lives, so that, you know, so many of them don't get caught in that terrible thing of not realizing that you can't be by the tracks and you could easily hurt yourself. But what is that? I know that's one of the messages, but what do you hope as you put this together that they take away?
Well, I hope, number one, that they take away on the safety factor. I don't want to see them not have an interest in railroading and trains, but I want them to do it safely and to be able to spread the word, let their friends know. By doing this, if they are not old enough to really read, mom and dad will learn, or grandma and grandpa. Too often I see people go around the crossing gates to try to beat a train. And believe me, the train will win. But I want them to come away with the safety first. Secondly, I want them to have an understanding, a basic understanding of why we have the railroad still. But mostly, too, I want them to have fun reading it.
Yeah, I like that. You want them to have fun. All right, pick up this book for sure. Katie and Kenny Tour the Railroad. Keith Corman, always a delight to have you on the show. Pick it up at Amazon and wherever great books are sold. And thank you.
I appreciate it, and I'd like to thank Michael Groves, the actor, for helping me on the book, too, with his suggestions on railroad safety.
Yeah, and tell people where they can see Michael Gross if they don't know who Michael Gross is.
Well, Michael
He's in all
Gross
kinds of things.
He's a movie star. We were in a movie together, actually, at one time. And I was an extra. And one of his best-known features was Tremors. A fun show, a fun movie, kind of gross, but it was fun and crazy. But he's a very nice guy, and he's very intimate about railroad safety since his family were railroaders. Yeah. And he is, too.
Yeah.
So
that's how he got involved. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, Katie and Kenny, Tour the Railroad. Keith, thanks so much, and thanks to all of you for listening.
Thank you, Kate, and everybody have a good day.